I have to start playing the role of a designer. But at some point, I switched of becoming this almost like a counselor.
He said that India ko dikhawa bahut pasand hai. So the amount of money they spend in their living space, the kind of money they'll spend in their what I call the private spaces. When you compare it to the West, people in the West really care for their private spaces, right?
So mental health also comes a lot from the way you surround yourself and the way you live. And I said, like, phek do ye mat, and you have that ad, like, phek do ye kadai, phek do ye. So I started learning karate, and I was like crazy. I would wake up at 5, change trains, go from suburbs to town, then go to college, and I've done all of it. Live for yourself, live beautifully. So I always say, in fact, that first make the rules and then break the rules.
My next guest on today's podcast is Jasmine Jhaveri. Jasmine is an interior stylist and runs her own design studio called Jasmine Jhaveri Design Studio. In this podcast, we were able to cover all about the industry on interior stylists and how it operates, where does it come in, where does it not come in when you think about building a home or a space or a commercial space as well. And also about her entrepreneur journey and the kind of setback she has seen in her life. It's been a wonderful conversation talking to her. I hope you can learn about the entire industry on interior stylists and being an entrepreneur. So without much further ado, let me get on with it. Hi, Jasmine. Welcome to Masters Decoded Season 3. Really glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Anis. I'm equally excited for this, and I was looking forward to this. And look forward to this.
So, Jasmine, I know what you do. And there is a lot of misconceptions about what a stylist versus designer is, and specifically when it comes to interior. And it's not a big topic when it comes to India. Many people are unaware that a category of interior stylists exists, which is different from an interior designer. So let's break an ice from there and let's get into, okay, what is that big difference between the two? An interior stylist or a designer?
So thanks for asking that question. Actually, it's very, very important. And while a lot of people are unaware about the difference between an interior stylist and an interior designer, there are a handful of them who have started understanding what does an interior stylist do. So essentially, back in the day, if like interior designer obviously used to do the entire spectrum of design for your home or any space for that matter, be it the tiniest of details, to the last bit of your furnishings and your cushions and your accessories. But what is happening over the years is that because there are plethora of options out there, and our lifestyle has changed, the way we entertain has changed, the fluidity of spaces has all kind of integrated into one. What we used to call back then as just a separate family room has now become a family room, where it is the combination of a living and a family, right? So when you are living very differently, and we are out there seeing so many options day in and day out, and it's all about detailing, that's when a specialist comes in. And we've realized that over the years, the interior stylist joins hands with the interior designer or an architect and seamlessly tries to carry the whole vision forward based on the initial design language or the material board created by the designer. So as an interior stylist, when I step into any project, we bring forth our vision of how do we integrate all of these design elements and make it look cohesive, harmonious, nothing forced, nothing kind of just added there for the heck of adding or just decorating. It's not surface decoration as much as about knowing someone's lifestyle, understanding where they come from, who are the family members, how do they live, what are the budgets, and enhancing the overall look of that space. So that's when an interior stylist brings in their forte of playing with combinations, textures, fabrics, kind of say, okay, I have this dead corner. Do I put a plant? Do I put a pedestal with a sculpture? Do I hang art up there? How do I dress up the window? Do I need a window dressing with drapes or a Roman line? Adding carpets, bathroom accessories. So the entire detailing, it's like putting all the elements together for the home or any space is what's the role of an interior stylist.
Now, you said a lot of good things, and I want to double click in each one of them. Now, specifically you spoke about the family and what are they trying to do, and who are they and what are they trying to achieve out of that space. Let's call it a space. But every family member or every individual within that family will have their own perspective what that space looks like. So how do you incorporate everybody's thought process into a design which aligns to everybody's, सबको जमेगा, right? के okay, इनको भी चलेगा, उनको भी चलेगा, right? And everybody will be happy together, because there can be conflicts, there can be perspectives which can come in from each of the family members. So how do you bring that cohesiveness together?
Well, that's a funny thing you ask, because I often joke with my friends and relatives that when we're doing this job, like in the last so many years that I've worked with so many kinds of clients, and you're dealing with all sorts of age groups, right? And the different mindsets in the same family. There are so many people who are living together. Even if it's a nuclear family, you're dealing with a couple where both are having their own opinions. So for me, it's a challenge of convincing not just one person, but there are like 4 to 5 people. Yeah. Also, it's a challenge to balance the age groups. So I have to start playing the role of a designer, but at some point I switch of becoming this almost like a counselor, because suddenly they break out into a fight, literally. And I'm like, okay, how do we solve this? And I literally have to pacify them and say, okay, we're going to get to what you want, and we'll also try and incorporate what you want. And I understand. At the same time, I have to put my foot down and explain to them the practicalities of it, or how anything can go off if they're not on the right track. So in a way, it's a fine balancing act, I would say. But if you bring them on, it's a trick. Like, you have to use a little bit of your, how do you say? You have to be a little bit more diplomat, a little bit more understanding, and also be more, empathetic towards their situation. Because when you understand them and you make them and convince them that, okay, I get you, and I totally believe in your challenges or what you want, and you come forward 50%, they're ready to bridge the gap as well. So let me give you an example. Like when I'm working with, say, a family where there are 2 or 3 generations living together, and there is a grandmother, or they have the parents living there, and then of course the couple, and then the children. So the grandmother is like, ये तो हमको change नहीं करना है, ये तो हमको कुछ नहीं करना है, हम तो ऐसे रहेंगे वैसे रहेंगे. So I listen to her first, everything, and I'm like, that's perfectly fine. I understand where you're coming from. I know it's very impractical to work around this, and I don't want to change the way you live. So the minute I kind of, give her that confidence that yes, I'm on your side, she starts becoming receptive. And the minute she says कि हम तो तेल लगाते हैं तो हमको ये napkin ऐसे ही चाहिए, you cannot change my headboard, I want it like this. And I know for a fact that she's used to living like that. But if I walk into a room, it kind of looks tacky, it's an eyesore. So this is when I am talking about bringing design to the minutest of level, not when we have guests or occasions or when we have celebrations. It's about how you live. There's nothing wrong in putting a napkin, don't get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say is, can we work around something and let it be aesthetic and practical? So the minute I kind of try and, give in to her ways and explain to her that the same thing can be achieved if I put, like, say, a faux leather for you, and it's totally vibrable, and I would not use a light color. I could probably use, a little bit of a color which kind of doesn't catch the stains. Are you okay with that? And she'll be like, sure, I'm very happy to do that. So in a sense, what's happening here is that you're bridging the gap between 2 mindsets, because I come from a very different mindset, and of course I have to understand her. And at the same time, when it comes to another generation, they have different ideas. If it's like it's one artwork and both of them are like, this doesn't work for me, the other one is like, I want that art. So you have to try and explain and get the balance out. And at some point, I think they realize that this is a professional speaking, and they do respect the fact that you have experience and you're doing it out of knowledge. So I think it's in that sense, but it's just that you have to be a little bit more understanding towards them.
Yeah, and your ideas may not always align to your client's ideas, right? And like you said, if it's a multi-generational home, it may not align to the different generation gaps which exist, and they would want a certain perspective. So it's a very fine balance, like how much can you push and how much you pull. So how do you strike that balance? Ke your heart is saying, and your mind is saying, yaar ye nahi acha lagne wala hai, right? But unko chahiye, unko pasand hai, right? And people have their own perspectives. Sabki choice alag alag hoti hai. So how do you strike that balance of pushing and giving in rather than trying to say, okay, it is what it is, right?
Well, it's never been such a big contrast where I have really had to, work with a very heavy heart or something where I have to really feel like, oh my God, this is just not the kind of home I ever want to work with. Because what happens is that, when you're even trying to collaborate with your designer, or you're kind of setting off first, you obviously understand their design language.
Right.
So you also doing your research and coming to me. So you know that this designer works with a certain design skill set and they have their own design ideas and their design language. So I relate to that person. So automatically, I think their 50% of the job is done thanks to social media and, all of the things which are already giving an entire profile of the kind of work that you've done. It's easy for a client to understand whether I'm going to be able to relate to this designer or not, whether it's my style or not, right? Second, even when I take on any project, I like to talk to the client, understand where they're coming from. If it's through an architect, I know I work with certain architects and their design language is something that I would be able to relate to. So that, design in that sense for me to slip into that project is easy. But never has there been any time where it's been very difficult for me, where we both on the opposite ends and I had to just make do with something. But if they're too adamant, I say, fine, this is your home.
Yeah.
So, and I respect that. And that happened actually with an 89-year-old lady, and she was house proud. She was a widow and she just lived with this helper who used to just be with her all the time. And she wanted purple walls and pink chair and all of it. And I even shared this incident on my last podcast.
Okay.
And I said, okay. First, I was like, no, this doesn't work, and I want to do this and I want to do that. And she had these ancestors' frames of her, her all the family members' frames laid out, like in the dining room, huge, with those big framed ones. And I said, can we just, put them somewhere else? And I will give you a nice corner. Let's have them all integrated, but somewhere else. But she refused. She wanted it the same way and all of that. So I said, you know what? Here is my ego. Here is me, the designer, who wants to step in without understanding this 89-year-old who is house proud. She feels she wants to do it a certain way and that will make her happy. Yeah. So who am I to take it away from her? So I really did not approve of those colors. But trust me, when it was done, the joy of probably the house, the way I would have done it, would be nothing compared to the smile and the sparkle I saw in her eyes. And when I went to meet her, she was like, she hugged me, come sit next to me. And, I took a picture with her. And she was like sitting on that turquoise blue sofa. She would come out every morning, get ready and sit over there. And she was just like, enjoy her space. I think that's a learning process also. Sometimes to give, we think we are bending or we're giving in or we're not doing things as per what you would have liked. But probably there's something more to learn and something bigger in it. Yeah. The end of the day.
Yeah, you spoke about colors, and today people are evolving their thinking towards colors as well. Like when you look at interiors which were there in the good old days, right? It was basic colors, right? I would not call it pastel colors also. It was basic colors like whites and, people would just resort to that. Now you see homes having colors, right? And all of that. But how do you balance colors? And you need to create depth of that field so that your house looks big, grand, even if it's a small space. How do you balance that? And there is a follow-up question to it, which you can probably look at it together. You coming on when the space is already designed, does that, when I say design, it's constructed, does it really help, or do you need to get involved much early on so that you're not just trying to do a patchwork with colors, as an example, from a recommendation? And where does that stop? Do you also get involved in the color of the house or the walls and all of that? So I know it's a well-rounded or it's a much more bigger question, but it kind of links to color, your involvement, where does it start, and where do you start or where do you stop, basically?
Right. So what happens is there are two situations when I come in. One is when it's a fresh new start, like you're doing a new home completely. And say if I'm working with an architect or an interior designer, I come in when the material board is ready. So halfway through the project, while the work is still ongoing and the tiles are being laid, the flooring is being laid, your elevations are not yet complete, the windows are still getting integrated, and that's where I come in to understand what's the floor plan, what is the material board, the selection of the hard materials. That helps me to kind of propose a lot of things going forward. So it's not patchwork at the end where it's kind of done and then I come in and all I have to do is add elements. That's when you would literally be doing like surface ornamentation, and I don't think it's adding a lot of value because it's doing things in hindsight rather than planning it ahead of time. And balance, scale, proportion, color combinations is very important. And as you rightly mentioned, balancing colors. So if we are working together on a project, a lot of times we work with paint samples, which are then approved based on the flooring or the veneers, and we try and integrate the whole look into one. And when we want to add colors, I always suggest that you follow your 70, 60, 30 and 10% rule, where 60% is your base, like your foundation, your overall color. Be it like your egg white or be it a taupe or whatever your neutral color is. And then you give a splash, like a second element, which is like your another 30%. And that kind of is one of the bigger elements, like one couch in a bedroom that can have a pop of color. And then you have your last 10%. What did I get it right? 30, 10. Yeah, I'm a little bit weak in math. So 10% is when your bold pop of color comes in. So it could be cushions or a throw or a bed cover, or see a nice artwork hanging above the bed or on one of the walls. So you build it up in layers and you never go all out from the beginning. So your colors are integrated like that. And through the entire space, the color remains the same in the sense the foundation is the same. We don't enter into a green room and then suddenly you enter into a pink room and into a blue room. When you walk through your home, like I said in the beginning, you want to feel that every space is kind of cohesive and it's harmonious and it works on your subconscious mind. So it's nice to get a feel of one color throughout the home. And of course, every room can have its own character. If it's a kid's room, you can play with colors. Again, a little bit pops of a pop art or their own elements of the storybooks and their fun toys and all that. And again, if it's a family room, you can bring out elements using leather, hardbound books, all of those accessories. So every room can have its own character, but I say in the sense of color, binding the whole thing, it's a good element to use, which will you kind of integrate all the spaces into one. And as I was explaining, that my role is halfway through the project so that we can work together as a team and ensure that we go to the last leg, planning everything ahead of time. For example, if I feel I want to do like a gallery wall of family pictures, or we want to integrate this wall is totally empty and I want to build an open bookshelf. So we can get that, or we can integrate it at the time of construction if it has to be straight done on site on the walls. So all these elements of the concepts and design, which one needs to visualize beforehand, is great if it happens at this stage. And the second situation that I come in is when someone's home is done. For example, now you've appointed an interior designer or an architect and your home is ready. And a couple of years down the line, there is something that we all need to keep sprucing up our home or your space or your office or whatever that is. So that's when I come in again, because you don't need to do structural changes now. So we are very clear that we don't do any structural changes. There's no bricking and no civil and plumbing. And when we want to spruce things around, you're done with the old furniture. If you're happy to remove it, we could remove it or reupholster it. You change the layout, declutter the space, a fresh lick of paint, or probably just changing the upholstery, adding new cushions, rearranging things. totally revamps the space in a very beautiful way. So in that sense, also entire the journey of changing the elements which are where you're not committed to. Like you can't change, say, the veneer. You don't want to change the veneer of your wardrobe. You don't want to change the flooring. All that is not happening. So when you're working in your home, I always tell my clients, use something and be farsighted. Don't make something at that point which is exciting and looking in trend or so colorful and bright, because it's going to start looking dated. It's start going to be, you're going to get bored of it over a period of time. And most importantly, you can't layer things along the way if it's so strong. If it's making a statement right from the beginning, there is no more scope to layer it in terms of design. So it's I explain to my clients, it's like foundation. When you're working, you use your foundation, which is just there to hold everything else that's going to happen later.
Yeah.
So I hope this answers.
It does. And when I look at these spaces, right, and in fact, a podcast hai, which is my favorite one, which is called the Knowledge Project. In that, Kunal Shah came in, right, and it was a 2.5 hour podcast. People who are listening, they should definitely give it a go, especially people from India, because it opens up eyes and he kind of breaks down what India is all about, right? And one of the things he mentioned, which is very, like, it kind of gave me my own perspective. Yeah, ye sach bol raha hai. For example, and the reason why I'm bringing that point here, and I want to get your perspective as you're doing a lot of these projects. He said that India ko dikhawa bahut pasand hai. So the amount of money they spend in their living space, in their living room, is astronomical as they'll compare the kind of money they'll spend in their what I call the private spaces, either their bedrooms or their bathrooms. The bathroom may be really shabby, he says, right? But and when you compare it to the West, people in the West really care for their private spaces, right? They are okay with their living spaces, but they really care for those private spaces, right? They will spend a lot of money on bedroom. They'll spend a lot of money on bathroom. They'll ensure that their vanities are really great, all of that, right? And you see that in the shows also, which are there on these prominent OTT platforms, that these home shops are there. What's your perspective? What are you seeing today, right? Is that mentality changing, or ye sach bol raha hai, ye sahi hai?
No, to a very large extent, I agree with Kunal, as you just quoted him, because like I told you, इंडिया में सबको अच्छा लगता है कि कोई आ रहा है तो चलो क्लीन कर दो, बेस्ट क्रॉकरी निकालो, अरे ये डस्टिंग करके रखना, ये वाला प्रॉप यहाँ पे, मतलब it's literally setting a stage. Right. So you want to put your best foot forward, but that's not how you're living day-to-day life. Yeah. And और रूम के अंदर किसी को लेके नहीं जाना है, सब गंदा करके रख दो. You're like, right, डंप कर दिया, ये कॉर्नर पे ये कोई नहीं आने वाला है, स्टडी कॉर्नर है यहाँ पे, सब डंप कर दिया, एंड देन बाद में सब वापस लगा देंगे. So it's almost like staging it, So I feel it's funny, but I think it's changing a lot, and I really think the onus lies on designers like us, and especially I would say people like interior stylists, because we are the last people to go out of the home after adding our touches. Yes. Right? After interior designers and architects, we stay with the client in the last leg, where we're hand-holding them to, say, pick up something for a bedside table, or even if they have something of their own, we tell them how to apply it, or how do you use it, or how do you rearrange your stuff. So in that sense, we are hand-holding them to the last leg in terms of how do you lay the bed, what are the bed color combinations you should have, the crockery. When your guests come, you should, kind of do a mix match like this. So the onus lies on us in that sense to educate them and push them forward, because at every time I work with someone, I feel like I want to do a little bit more to enhance the quality of their life. And I really believe that design does play a very important role in the overall feel and the overall psyche and the well-being. So mental health also comes a lot from the way you surround yourself and the way you live. And these are essential things you surround yourself with. So it's not a small thing if I've just put a plant behind me, or I've just put some books on my bedside table. If there is clutter and the lamp is not of a good height and I'm not getting enough leading light, or the ergonomics of a chair are not right. Yeah. I mean, how does it help you? So in that sense, when I walk into a client's home and I see doilies and they have these mats जिसके ऊपर वो phone रखेंगे और vase रखेंगे, फिर वो सौंफ का bottle है, table पे इतने सारी डिब्बियाँ हैं, there is like my medicine box, everything is lying there on the sideboard. And it's such a nice song. Like I've made small reels and there's little things on YouTube and I put it out there. And I said like, फेंक दो ये mat, and like you have that ad like फेंक दो ये कढ़ाई, फेंक दो ये. So I'm like, throw these mats and whatever your doilies out of the window, because can we please understand that this is, say example, a back painted glass surface, or you have a laminated veneer polish, or you have a PU. That is the reason why today you spend so much money on the material finishes and on laminate, so that it doesn't scratch. And even if you feel it may scratch, or we all live in Indian homes, let's be realistic, maid आएगी वो ऐसे ऐसे इधर इधर scratch करके चले जाएगी, मेरा वाज इधर से उधर करके. तो I give them solutions. I said, please put these little silicone buttons which you get in any hardware store. So I will show it to you. I literally have a remote over here, and if it's a photo frame like this, if I want to put it on my table and I feel that this might scratch, I literally put a silicone button here. It's very, very thin and it's resting very beautifully on my side table. So I don't need to worry about it. So the solution is here. Even with these soft bottles, I say get nice leather box or a lacquer box, and let's put all of your little paraphernalias inside it and let that beautiful box sit there. So you are sorted, I'm sorted, you are happy, I'm happy. You get your stuff where you wanted it, and at least when you enter, that space looks neat and tidy, and aesthetically also you are getting what you want.
But have you had a situation, Jasmine, where आपने you were the last person, the client is all happy and all of that, एक हफ्ते के बाद फोन आ रहा है कि बॉस नहीं जम रहा है यार, जैस्मिन मजा नहीं आ रही है, right? It's not giving me that feeling, right? And when you add to it, right, I will bring this topic about, you have vastu, you have a certain perspectives about मेरे पंडित जी ने या मेरे मुल्ला जी ने बोला कि ये चीज ऐसी होना चाहिए, ये. So how do you, and वो feeling नहीं आ रही है, and you said that energy नहीं आ रही है, and then I'm not getting a good energy when I'm entering this room and all of that, and you have to make changes. Okay, I'll come in and I'll see what I can do. So have you had those situations also?
Yeah, sure. We've had clients who have a lot of restrictions in terms of, like you said, their consultant or the Vastu consultant has said कि ये brown है. So for him, brown means everything is brown. But I'm like, ये brown नहीं है. For me, this is falling in the category of military green. ये brown कैसे हो गया? So from a designer's perspective, उनको सब brown लगता है. Like as a layman, ये brown है, ये grey है. But I'm saying this is not grey. This is icy blue. So there comes a challenge again, but it's a little give and take again. So I have to make them understand that I get what you're saying. We don't want to use brown, but this is a little bit towards, say, a tan brown or like a tan orange, which borders towards brown, but it's not brown. So is this okay? And then we try and work with samples. We show them actual physical samples of fabric or lacquer or any polish that we need to, and then once they're convinced, it works fine. But that's a great question again, because when we are challenged, you come out with creative solutions. And there are so many homes where we work with challenges, and then what I really like is when you provide design solutions to clients. It's very easy to just walk into a space and say, I want this and I want that, and let's put this and let's put that and walk out. But real challenge and the real fun is when you work around these challenges and create your design solutions.
Interesting.
So you're happy that you've added a lot of value, and the clients are happy because their needs are taken care of, and yet without compromising on the aesthetics. So I'm not saying there's only one way to do a thing, which could be in my head when I step that I want to do it this way. But now, what do? Now this is the challenge. So let's find 3 other ways to do up this space. I'm sure there are 100 ways. So you can't stop yourself by saying ये तो ऐसे ही होगा, ऐसे ही होना चाहिए, because ऐसे ही होता है. First of all, there is no rule in any science school. That just, I think, defeats the entire principle of design, right? Because ऐसे ही होता ही नहीं. So I always say, in fact, that first make the rules and then break the rules. So, but I do that. I don't let the client do that.
Nice one. First make the rules and break the rules. I'll use that.
But we get to do that because I know when to break and what to break.
Nice. So let's switch gears a little bit, right? And I think, I don't want to quiz you more because, from this last few minutes of conversation, it clearly shows your art, right? But how did your journey start, right? Like, how did JJDS come about? Jasmine Jhaveri Design Studio really come about, right? What was the genesis of that? Like, did you do a professional degree? Did you actually study this, or it was just you learned it along the way?
No, I did a course, and this happened actually when I was just about 21 or something, and I actually studied home styling, home design after my marriage. And I was working with Cross.
Where did you study?
This was from BB Somani at Kafka.
Okay.
So they had that course back in the day, and it was the first time they had ever introduced something like that. And obviously it was not called like home styling or interior styling. These terminology was not even anywhere there. So it was called home improvement and something. It was something to do with home decor. I forget the entire name.
Okay.
But yes, it was the first time that they had introduced this. And I remember distinctly, I was working with Crossword, their flagship store here at Mahalakshmi, and I used to compare and have a lot of these book launches. So it was more like a stopgap. And when I saw the ad in the newspaper, I was really excited that this is something very new. And it's all about decor and design, and yet it's not interior design. And I didn't want to push myself into all those 4-year courses and do the technical bit of it. This looked interesting, so I jumped into it, and I did a 1-year course with them. And then I started working with Atmosphere, a beautiful furnishing store at Colaba, and that was the flagship store. And they had just started then. And I worked there for more than 2 years, and great experience. And I met the best of clients, and the kind of people I interacted with was really amazing. And I understood one thing very clearly, that there was this gap between the architects and the end users, where someone had to come in and kind of bridge the gap in the sense of the transition after the project is over, and once the handover is done to the clients, the little elements were still missing in their homes, and these clients were totally lost. And whenever they would buy something, they would second guess. So either they were unsure, they were not knowing where to go and pick up these things. They couldn't visualize the space in its totality. And in those 2 years, I realized that. And also speaking with architects, I understood that they would love someone to step on board and help them take this forward with their projects. So, and always I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and it was very clear that I would have my own setup one day. And that's it. It's just after 2 years or something, I started my journey, and I knew a lot of architects. So started working on a couple of projects initially. I had no team back then. I was just working on my own. I just had support of my tailors and upholsterers, from where we would put all the soft furnishings together. One thing I was very clear, that I would not just do window dressing and bed linen. So back in the day, a lot of people were doing that as only soft furnishing consultants. So they would come and suggest your bed linen and curtains, and they would be done. But I wanted to do the whole haul, because I knew very well, and I was very confident of that, of enhancing the space much more and taking it till the final end. So for me, if I were to see something in a shop, or if I were to visualize something, I would be very good with that, because my visualization skills are good. I don't have to second guess. I don't have to get that article at home and say, or on approval and say if this works or doesn't work. I remember the color distinctly, and I remember the scale and proportion. So for me, it became very easy to then work with clients and then give them that confidence that this demands this space demands this object, or this thing needs that. And that's how I started, and I said that it would be the entire hog of design elements, and I would work with, say, your table setup or your bed linen setup, or even laying out the carpets, because they would just kind of get a small carpet under the tepoy or the center table, और हो गया, फिर हमको झाड़ू मारना है और हमको ये सब इतना कवर नहीं करना है, इतना पैसा मार्बल में डाला है, तो फिर आप इतना कवर क्यों कर रहे हो कारपेट से? Then I said that, what I say is that if your carpet is so chotu under the table, it look even worse. It look more tacky. you're killing the entire look of the space. So there's something called like scale and proportion. So आप एक काम करो, carpet ही मत डालो. But they would be like, नहीं हमको carpet डालना है. Then I would make them understand that see this space looks more richer. इतना अच्छा sofa डाल रहे हो आप. You know, it's such a beautiful sofa. And if you're killing it with this small little carpet in front, it doesn't do justice, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, when I talk to women, I have to give them these analogies of like how you know to use this in their personal dressing or some makeup. So I tell them अगर आप साड़ी पहन रहे हो तो आपका अगर वो नीचे से वो आपका वो चनिया दिखेगा तो अच्छा नहीं लगता है. So these are little elements, you know, so you have to understand कि और या आपका साड़ी ज्यादा ऊपर है, आप नीचे तक ही लोगे, heels तक लोगे, भले आपको लगे कि जमीन से थोड़ा लगेगा, but that's the elegant way to wear a sari. Would you put it high, about 2 inches above your heels and walk with your sari, and your beautiful Kanjivaram will go for a toss. That's how you're going to wear. It just strikes for them. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Why do I have to not understand this? Because when it comes to home, they are very practical. But when it comes to their own dressing and all, it's very you just have to, I think, explain to them on their ways of living. And like I said, push the envelope each time. So that's when I think we need to make them understand and know how to integrate a space with the right scale and proportion. And that's so how my started.
So when did you form your company, like proper company? Was it like after completing the course, or you were doing individual consulting because you didn't have a team and all? When did you form your company?
Company came much later. Like I was very clear I would want the name as Jasmine Jhaveri and not any other name. And I think like just about a decade ago or so, it just became Jasmine Jhaveri Design Studio. And I thought that I just should have design studio attached to it. So you know what Jasmine Jhaveri does.
Right.
That's when I started. And so now we have a team of 4 or 5 girls working together with us. And I have a proper office setup. I used to work from home earlier. And it's been 18 years now since I'm working with a lot of architects, interior designers, private clients, H&I clients, some clients whose names we cannot take. So the NDA is signed. So it's been a beautiful journey. And I've also got the opportunity to work internationally with some homes, because with my kind of work, I don't really need to have a team of, you know, carpenters chahiye ya plumbers chahiye who need to travel with me. And because it's all about curating, sourcing, it can be done overseas, online. And then I can travel physically towards the end and just set it up and do a handover for my clients. And then also travel in that city where I am. Like I did a home in Amsterdam. And towards the end, I just went there. We went to the local design fair there, the Dutch design fair, and we picked up so many things there. So it was a beautiful integration of things that went from here as well as the local design shops.
So the initial journey, right? You're just starting up, you're building a business, which is not so known in India. Internationally, at that time also, it was picking up, but it was not that known. But let's talk about India from a context. You're just building it up. You know, how were the initial days? Marketing, sales, invoice banana hai, sourcing karna hai, and jo sourcing bhi kar rahe ho, whether they are going to be committed. Because like you said, you don't have products, right? You're going to source. आप भी commitment दे रहे हो कोई client को, like, and over and top of that, you have a family, you have a husband, your daughter, right? You have responsibilities towards there. What were those initial days like?
Well, it was beautiful. All along, it's been great. I have nothing to complain. In that sense, I've not had any tough times. I've been blessed by great clients. Architects who I've worked with have been amazing. The team I've got has been super good. Yes, I have worked very hard, no doubt about it. No, when you're starting off, you don't have the resources and you don't have the finances to build a team suddenly or have an office to operate from. So in that sense, I used to obviously work from home, and my family is very supportive, always has been until date. So I was given like a small home office where I would work out from, and I was alone. I used to do my stuff, and I remember like I got this huge project, and this was about 12-15 years ago, and it was an 8-story apartment in Juhu, and one of the very prestigious projects for a big architect. And he said, here it is now, then do it. Let's just go for it. So I said, okay, this is a challenge. I remember sitting out in my living room with like 50 catalogs in the night, because each 8 floors, so each family, it was a Marwari family, joint family. So there were 3 families. So each family had 2 floors, and each floor would have 3 or 4 rooms. And there would be a kids' room, there would be the master room, there would be a sit-out lounge. I remember sitting till 2 a.m. in the morning with like 50 catalogs, because I would have a presentation next day, and I would make 3 combinations at least for each room, and I had to tag them. Then I would get up from one corner, run to the other side of the room, tag that, make my notes. Back in the day, we didn't have all these digital presentations. I would sit and make physical mood boards with printouts, stick them, make notes. So there were these large mood boards I used to carry, and I used to work throughout on my own. And of course, family support was there, but you also need to look into your family, be there, as a housewife and as a family member, to just take care of the home. So you have to balance it out all. And being an entrepreneur initially, yes, like you said, accounts. Now that was a weak point for me, like till date. Today I can say, I'm telling you, after the last 2 years, I've become much sharper. Now, so late, but I don't regret it. But at the same time, I feel like I wished I'd known my accounts better. But I was really not very smart with my accounting. But I had to learn it slowly. Like I would do dumb things, like if my client has given me some cash to say you need to use this for buying all the accessories. And if I've got a cash from another client, if I've used a little bit from here, I would literally go back at the end of the day and say, कि मैंने यहाँ से पैसा लिया था तो पहले मैं इसमें डाल देती हूँ, फिर मैं यहाँ से इसमें डालती हूँ. And I would sit on the bed and do all that, and my husband would walk into the room and he'd be like, what are you doing? Who does that? I said, नहीं, इसमें से लिया था तो पहले मुझे इसमें डालना है, अभी इसमें से लिया था तो इसमें डालना है. I said, that's not how you do. But it's a journey, and I think I'm happy that what came my way taught me so much, right? Be it accounts, be it sourcing, but I was always on the move. And I think it's very important to grow by observation. And you learn so much when you are out with people, working with different architects. It's been a journey, it's been a challenging part where I would say when I had to work all alone on big projects.
Right. Now, when you have a team, and how did you build up the team? Because ये इंडिया में तो सिखा नहीं रहे हैं, right? Still, interior stylist is not a course, right? Am I mistaken? There's not a course for people to undertake. So where do you source your team members, right? Who are at the same wavelength, same perspective as what you're looking for? Because जो भी नया आएगा, वो भी उसकी खुद की सुनहरे ख्वाब रहेंगे, right? मेरे को भी बनना है, मेरा ये design aesthetics है. How do you balance that aspect when you're getting your team together?
So initially, I used to look at all their portfolios, but I used to interview them and see what kind of work they've done. Now, I honestly don't look at any of that, because I said, वो बोलते हैं ना, जब शादी होती है तो हाँ, तुमने जो सीखा है वो तुम्हारे घर पे रखो, यहाँ आके वैसे भी you'll learn what I'm trying to teach you. So it's like वो मैं सिखा दूंगी तुमको. मेरी style अलग है. I respect it. I want people who are efficient. I want people who are street smart. I want people who are I want people who take initiative, who have good communication skills, who think on their feet. Don't show me your beautiful designs. I respect that what you've done is great, but when you come here, you're going to adapt to the kind of work we do. You're going to adapt to what is a JJDS style, to my design concept, and I will help you mold. I'll help you grow. So मुझे design नहीं देखनी है. I want to see other skill sets. Problem solving.
Yeah. So now when your business is growing, right, it's not just your business. There are other interior stylists now showing up. There are people who have already been established. There are others who are trying to establish. Abhi competition bhi बढ़ गया है, right, in your space. Now, now it's a different game altogether, right? Earlier it was, you were getting it more organically, as it's called. Now you have to start thinking, okay, boss, how do I market? How do I do sales, right? How do I build my brand more so that people understand, right? It's not just within the architect community or the people or the client community. I know I need to expand. So how are you focusing on that? Because that is a different ball game altogether.
Yes, I agree. A lot of interior stylists have now come about, and they're doing some great work. And I'm very happy that there are a lot of them now on board, and people are also more aware. Okay, they want an interior stylist for their home. Having said that, everybody has their niche. When you look at interior designers, there's so many. Look at architects, there's so many. Interior styling is a new field, yes. But it's important that the more of us, more interior stylists come along, and we add more value to the entire design process. Having said that, everybody has their own niche. Everybody has their USP. And it's not just design, right? Today, there are great products out there. Now, what differentiates one product from the other, or one service from the other? More than the design skill set, I would say what you bring to the table as a package is more important. So that's why I emphasize a lot about design is great. I can give you 10 options. The same way another interior stylist could give you 10 options, and you may like both. Now, how do you decide who do you want to go with? So how do I say that when you want to come to me, this is what I give you, and that's my USP. So that should differentiate me from my competitors. So where I come from is the belief that when I grow, not just professionally, but the overall growth journey, even personally, and when I grow with the mindset that I want to enhance my soft skills and my life skills, I think it reflects a lot in your work, in the way you think, and in the way you take your clients forward with you in your journey. Because it's a home you're building together. It's a dream space. And the energy that you bring out through your own life lessons, it's very, very important, I would say. Design तो मिल जाएगी. बहुत मिलेगी आपको designs. Online मिलेगी, references मिलेंगे, सब जगह मिलेगी. Inspirations मिलेंगे, copy मिलेगी. Design is one thing, but what about the other elements which we don't look into? Does our temperament match? Are you on your, are you updated? Do you know what's happening in the world in terms of design? How do you influence your own self? Do you travel enough? Do you like the finer things of life? If I'm into sports, or if I'm out and happy and spending time with my friends, it's very important for me to grow as a person, and that will reflect in my work for sure. And when I'm happy and I'm more energetic, I will always bring forth something to the table where we'll work magic and we'll achieve wonders. So I come from a space where, like, say, everybody's doing their own thing, but if I have to work, say, towards competition, yes, I want to get the best projects. Yes, I want to work with the best architects, and we all want to gun for something bigger. And I just feel that what I have to tell to my prospective clients is that I have years of experience, which is my forte, and it's a strong point. Because I've worked with all sorts of clients and different temperaments. I've handled very, very tough clients, and they've given me grief. There are some very good clients I've worked with. So I have their entire wave, which I've crossed, and I've ride the wave. And in terms of what I bring forth, I think is passion, commitment, and integrity. And I really put myself, I think, in my client's shoes and give them that design experience. And that's what, that connectivity or that warmth which I have with my clients is something where I feel I can connect with on a deeper level.
Very interesting. Now, I know you're a strong person. The reason you and I are talking and we know each other is because we met at a summit. And there I saw you performing a feat which kind of gave all of us a goosebump, right? And that was profound. Now, being strong also has, as an entrepreneur, you have to be strong, right? And like you said, you get customers who may not be at the same wavelength, right? And they can give you enough griefs. And it's not just customers. Many things can happen, right? As an entrepreneur. How do you ensure that because there can be many setbacks, right? Professional, personal, and you've had a lot of these setbacks in your personal life as well. How do you, you're a human being at the end of the day. All of us are. So how do you keep enhancing and ensuring that the energy is not taking you away from your goals, which you have for your company, for yourself, for your family, and everything?
Yeah, going back to how we met.
Yeah.
We met at the summit in Goa last year, and it was a beautiful journey, and it was profound, and it was at that moment it was great. But I think what happened after that was life-changing. And when we say life-changing, we feel at that moment, but I think I realized it much later.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things that I realized that happened to me is that a few months later, I remember feeling this whole, the self-talk within me was that I love myself. Oh, I love you, Jasmine. I just love you. And I was like, I've never said that to myself. I've never been so kind to myself.
Yeah.
And I could just feel love and warmth for myself. That's all I could feel. And I was in a place of bliss. I've always been a tough one in a sense, like I beat myself down because if I'm not doing something, I have very high standards for myself. And that, unfortunately, because of that, I also hold everybody else in that standard because I want everything done in a particular way or in the best efficient way. And everybody has their own way of doing. But for me, I cannot handle inefficiency or something which is slightly off. Maybe because I'm a little bit more harsh on myself. That's where it comes from. And just in the last 2 years, because of my personal setback where I suffered a personal loss and I lost my husband one fine day, just suddenly, out of the blue. Life has completely changed for me. And I don't know. I think if I look back now, it's 2.5 years. But if I look back now in my journey, I feel like I have become more stronger, but in the good way. Right. Stronger when you say strong doesn't mean putting up a strong face or having a brave front. Stronger also means to be able to let go of things you're holding on to. And stronger when you say that I can do this and I can achieve this. And when you say I am not dependent on anyone. So I took on that role of saying, I'm sorted and I'm just going at a 10x speed and I can handle everything. Maybe that's a surviving mechanism. And because I have no one now to watch my back, of course, I'm supported by family and friends. I have the best in-laws and they're an amazing, amazing support system for me and my daughter. But having said that, subconsciously, that now you're on your own. So you all the more are getting more out there and you are becoming a person who's going to provide for your own self. But in the last few months, I've realized that I'm slowing down and it's a scary process and I'm slowing down and I'm like, where am I running? I want to achieve this. I want to achieve that. I want to go for this summit. I want to learn this new language and I want to lose X kgs. I want to read this book. I want that goal at work. And I have my vision chart right here. But I'm looking at that vision chart now and I'm like, is this mine? Is this borrowed goal or is it really, really mine? Wake up at 5:30 a.m. like you are limitless and all of that. Yeah. It's not happening. I'm not a 5:30 a.m. person.
Yeah. All of us need not be. Yeah.
All of it need not be. But what it's teaching me is that I've learned to just slow down. I've learned to be telling myself it's okay. You don't have to do everything at once.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. And that's the self-talk I've been giving my inner child every day because that has been harming me. And it's kind of overwhelming me sometimes. But in the last few months, I've kind of slowed down physically. You start by slowing down your work, your activities physically, and then it translates into a much deeper level internally where your thoughts slow down. Where you don't feel guilty that, you haven't done this and you haven't done that for the day. You don't need to fill your diary. And it's scary because I feel I'm shedding right now. I'm shedding my old, like the snake sheds its skin, I'm shedding my skin. It's very painful. Like for me, my karate was my identity. But in the last 6-8 months, I haven't gone to the class.
Wow. Okay.
And I feel guilty. I feel really, really guilty. Then I haven't been waking up and going for my karate class twice a week. But you know what?
You are like a master black belt, or you're like you are the sensei, I should say now, right?
Yeah.
In karate, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I passed my third degree black belt in September in 2022. So that's when you get the title of a sensei. So, but just look at that. And from Jan or Feb onwards, I stopped going for classes. And somewhere I felt that I didn't need to. This is something very deep. I realized that I was probably doing karate it's meant for self-protection and fitness. And of course, it makes you very resilient and very strong. But I realized that right now, I don't need self-protection. Maybe at some stage mentally, when I was a kid, my dad was very strict and I was too scared maybe. So I said, no, I want to learn karate. That little child thought he was going to protect me. So I started learning karate and I was like crazy. I would wake up at 5, change trains, go from suburbs to town, then go to college. And I've done all of it. And then it's been 32 years now. But at this point, I feel I want to drop it. But it was scary and I cried. It was almost like I let go of my partner. I let go of my love of my life. That I'm kind of divorcing my love. Because I feel right now I don't want it. And it was scary. And I cried because I felt, but that was me. That was my identity. But all these things are happening to me right now. And as I'm going along, and like I told you, after I lost my husband, I was riding the wave. But there comes a time when you have to realize that you are grieving, but in a very different way. And probably that is what I thought, is that if I take on more stuff, I'm trying to fill the void maybe. And I addressed it, that is it that? Am I running away? And I said no. But I think I was running away and trying to tell myself that you're not scared. You don't need to be scared. But I was scared maybe. And it's a scarier place to be slowing down for a person like me than taking charge, because I've always been in control. And when you just relax and let loose, it's more scary for a person like me. But I'm trusting myself, and I tell this to myself because I'm working also with an energy coach, and she's really, really helping me. You know me. So she's working with me and she's guiding me and taking me through each day, and I'm reprogramming myself. And I feel I don't need to achieve everything at once. I'm not a superwoman. I'm happy in my space and I don't need to prove anything to anyone. And this is what my inner child needs to hear. Because the inner child is making me do this, that you need to do this, you need to prove this to this one. And there are voices in the head from the past which I'm trying to prove that I can do this and I can shine here and I can shine there. And whether it's karate, whether it's design, whether it's whatever, I can do it all.
Yeah.
I don't want... So
you're trying to live in the moment. You're trying to live in the moment rather than trying to plan your future, right? Meaning that's what I'm also getting. You're just trying to be here, be present, which is so interesting, right? And when I'm going through that phase where, my heart and my mind will say, hey, let's conquer the world. But what are we doing about right now, the current situation which we already have? So no, I completely align. It's a very different thing. But the entrepreneur journey is also a lonely journey, right? Correct me, meaning that's what I see with a lot of other friends and people whom I talk to, and even whatever I do a little bit on this podcast and all of that. It's a lonely journey. And how do you ensure, like, this is great, like you're having an energy coach and you're reprogramming, retooling, all of that, but things can break you down, right? Like it breaks me down, right? Even I get these thoughts, right? Like I'm sure you go through that. Like, how do you come out of it quickly? Like, no, this is what I am, right? It's going to, and many things can impact, right? Every day. So what is that?
Yes. In fact, I just went through that recently where I was really, really down, and I almost felt a sense of panic attack because, I just realized that I'm not having enough staff and I'm not able to retain them. And what is it? They would literally come for a day and then they would say, we don't want to work. Or they would come for a week and they would say, this is not happening. I'm not convinced. I don't want to work here. And finding the right staff wouldn't help. If I would interview them and I would say, what is your vision and what are your end goals and where do you see yourself a year or two later, or eventually in this firm, they would come up and say, no, I just want to work for 6 months. And I'm like, why am I then even investing in you? But I appreciate the honesty. At least I say that I'm glad you told me that you don't want to stick around and it's just experience that you want. And I said, I'm sorry, it's not a training school. So I experienced all of this in the last month, and it was very harrowing. I have never felt so much like out of control. And I said, oh my God, work which used to give me pleasure is giving me so much of stress. That's not me. That's not worth it. Yeah. But you can't help it. Like you said, it's a lonely journey because you're wearing so many hats. You also get involved in operations. You also get involved. I think design just becomes a little percentage of your work. You don't get that mind space because you're getting into operations. You're also handling accounts. So you have an accounts team. Now you're also looking at the employees. There are so many things to look into. Even growing your business. Now that I'm operating, from an office space, you think of all the overheads and what is the end goal you want. In terms of growing your business, collaborations, so brand building, all of that, it takes a toll, no doubt. And that's where I think you need to hold a space for yourself, that you need to trust the timing, you need to trust yourself, and you need just to trust and understand that whatever works out in the long run would be in good for you. Because when we try and control everything, it's probably not going to happen at that moment in time. But in the larger scheme of things, we realize that we've risen out stronger from here. But having said that, when I went through this tough phase last month, and I just didn't know what to do, because I just felt suddenly scared that if I'm just operating with one person or two people in the office, and these projects right now are so many, how am I going to finish those? How am I going to do justice to those? But you always show up with your best foot forward. And the talk I used to give myself before entering a meeting is like, I would be waking up with thoughts like, oh, today I have to do this and today I have to do that and I have to attend this meeting and how will it go and how will we finish this? But touch wood, work has never stopped. Work has always been great. But when I would step into a meeting or before I would go meet a client, first thing I would just tell myself, it's going to be fantastic, Jasmine. You're going to work wonders and come out. And surely it's helped me. Like, I've come out with a good frame of mind. Even though there are problems in the back end, you don't show that. You bring your best energy with your best mindset forward. So I think that's what you can do, nothing else. And that's where I say investing in yourself, in your personal growth, will take care of all sorts of setbacks in your life, temporary or whatever they may be.
Now I'm going to ask you a very tough question. Okay, it's going to be tough. 18 years से आप ये काम कर रहे हो. If you have to pick one, being your best project and something which you look back and यार ये मैंने किया है. Your clients are going to get annoyed and pissed off if I have to. That's why I said it's a tough question. Which one will that be?
Oh, see, because when you say a great project, it has many parameters. It can be based on experience. How was your experience? Something can be just great design, but okay clients. So some can. So
let me simplify it further for you to help you. Right, a place where you would say, if given an opportunity, I will live there. Right, like it's yours. It's almost like it feels yours. I know you will say everything is yours, but that's one place where you'd say, "Yaar, kal agar opportunity mila, I will go ahead and stay there," because that it kind of was so personal.
I don't know. I've always always felt very happy when I've left a place.
Ek.
So I would say I really enjoyed doing up the Amsterdam project.
Okay.
That's of course international. But if I were to, because I'll tell you why that one first. And one is because I was very happy with the idea that something like this could be achieved. And that helped me understand that physical barriers don't matter. From the work front, it was great to understand that it's achievable. Secondly, the clients I work with were fantastic, and they give me a lot of free hand in that sense. So when you really enjoy doing a project is also when the client gives you a free hand, and also when your mental wavelength matches. So that was great, and I could integrate a lot of modern India design concepts into their home. And the fact that I also could go to Netherlands, and we worked with local artists there, picked up a painting from a local designer, a Dutch designer, and integrated that into the home. The whole experience, I would say was beautiful. And the setup of this home itself was so gorgeous because they live in a 600-year-old village on the outskirts of Amsterdam. Wow. Very pretty 3-story mansion, and they have a little bit of a lake behind, a river actually, the Amstel River, and on the outskirts of the Amsterdam. And they had a little private boat out there. So beautiful setting in that sense. So I think it was very charming, the inside and the outside of the house, the whole experience, and the fact that for me to not be able to go physically to site and check if things were okay, but everything was happening online.
Oh, wow.
And when I went there physically, it was just so satisfying, and it was just such a beautiful feeling to see that it all fell in well and it was looking so beautiful. So that was very, very special in that sense. It was very memorable.
No, on that note, Jasmine, I think this entire conversation, about an hour plus, has been so profound and so interesting. And thank you for being yourself. I know you, so this entire conversation has been very special for me as well. And
you made it very, for me to open up and to be very comforting. And I know you, Anis, so because also we met at Life Plugging Summit, so that was somewhere we connected.
Yep.
And thank you for having me on your podcast. It means a lot.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you, and best of luck with all the projects which are ongoing. And I hope people from today's show are a little bit more knowledgeable about what an interior stylist does, what really is in for it. And hopefully people reach out to you if they want to get their houses done or pursue a career in that, right? There are a lot of people who want to do that. So I'll leave your contact details in the show notes so people can actually reach out.
Can I just add one thing here, because I so passionately believe about design and the way we live, is that one small message to the audience would be from my side is that, live for yourself, live beautifully, and don't just collect objects or things and live in a way where you want to show people. Live every day beautifully, aesthetically, because it works on your subconscious mind. So when you are buying things, or even when you are, say, using a watering can, let it be beautiful. Look at the Dutch designers. Some of the designers in the West, like Philippe Starck. He thought of speaker as being round. The speaker need not be just like a rectangular box. So when I say for us Indians, where we are survivors and we just think of the basics, we think काम हो गया, बस ठीक है, छोड़ो, अभी क्या करना है इससे, ये तो अपने काम के लिए चीज है, तो काम के जैसे ही होना चाहिए. But if you even arrange the way you arrange your countertop in the kitchen and you arranging your knives, it can be beautiful, So create a little bit of visual interest, I would say, in your day-to-day life. That little joy and that little happiness that you can bring in your own life is very important. And that's how we would elevate our living, I think, a day-to-day living. So that's where I come from. And that's my passion. And I feel that's one thing I would like to drive into everybody's homes, that little message through this podcast.
A beautiful message. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anis.